Welcome to WikiAfrica Hour, where Africa's Wikimedians talk to, learn from, and discuss with each other topics they choose. Each session is curated by African Wikimedians to expand Africa's open movement. Today's host is Cecilus Obanyaya.
Hello, everyone. I welcome you to the Wikimedian session of the WikiAfrica Hour, titled WikiAfrica Hour, the Xperience. My name is Cecilus Obanyaya, and like some of you know, or some of you are yet to know, the WikiAfrica Hour is a monthly broadcast which was activated by the Wiki Africa movement in order to support the activities of the Wiki Africa movement and Wikimedians across Africa. Wiki Africa Hour intends to share current updates and highlights of Africa Wikimedians activity, to interact with guests and share questions, of course, from community members, and then promote synergy within the Wiki community by discussing topics, projects, constraints, collaborations, and opportunities. For us in Wiki in Africa, it's about making sure that the wiki-wide movement is actually carrying along everybody, especially the African Wikimedians. Yes, there is a Telegram group for African Wikimedians, but that just sort of takes only a handful of African Wikimedians in terms of making sure they get the information and keep up to date with the communications from the wiki-wide movement. There is also the Wiki in conference, but that happens once in a year. This is why the Wiki Africa Hour was initiated, a monthly gathering of African Wikimedians in order to make sure that there is current updates and information shared amongst the African Wikimedians towards, of course, being carried along in the wiki-wide movement.
For this Wikimedia Special Edition, we are going to share with you some of the highlights from Wiki Africa Hour's first 4 episodes.
In the first episode, we featured Captain Maha, during which she expressed her hopes and the vision she has for Africa being, of course, much more integrated into the wiki-wide movement. Her brainchild, the 2030 movement strategy, and of course the Universal Code of Conduct were some of the points where she mentioned that she really would like to see Africa being absorbed into these specific topics and being, of course, much more integrated.
Enjoy these highlights from that episode.
What can you say were the highlights of your tenure as the CEO of Wikimedia Foundation and the things you were probably most proud of?
I think I'm really, really proud of the Universal Code of Conduct and the fact that we all worked together as a movement to get that through. I know it hasn't been easy, and I know that it's required a lot of discussion, and I know it's brought people who didn't always agree into some difficult conversations and dialogue. And much of that wasn't even, I wasn't often in those conversations. So that's really work that the movement has done together. The other piece that I feel really proud of is the strategic direction for 2030 and how that process of having conversations really not only got us to something that I think is an aspirational strategic direction that really captures where we are as a movement right now, talking about issues of knowledge equity, thinking about the essential infrastructure of free knowledge for the future, but was a way in which we were very intentional about ensuring that members of our community, from every part of the world, from all different language groups, were well represented in the conversation. And the ways in which I've seen that strength of representation turn into leadership of different communities at the global level. So we see African Wikimedians at every part of the conversation today in a way that we didn't 5 years ago, and I think that that's true. I was talking to someone from Wikimedia Indonesia the other day, and it was the same observation I made to them, was just thank you so much for all of the work that you did to really bring your community together, because I don't think we could imagine a Wikimedia of the next 5 years without Africans and without East Asians at the table in conversation, being very present in deciding how our future should be. And so I didn't do that work. You did that work, but I'm really, I certainly feel like the movement is a better place for that.
Okay. Throughout your tenure as the CEO of the Wikimedia Foundation, you've been visibly supportive of diversity and inclusion. The first Wiki Indaba took place in 2014, and Asaf and Asuya turned up. Your support for Africa's Wikimedians has been evident time and time again, but especially when you attended the Wiki Indaba in Ghana in 2017, Wiki Indaba 2018 in Tunisia, and Wikimedia Cape Town in 2018. How was your experience? I mean, what are your memories for the time?
So my biggest regret is that I didn't get to go to the last Wiki Indaba before the pandemic. Because we rescheduled the one for Nigeria, and then the pandemic happened, and so I'm like pain in my heart that I didn't get to come. I mean, my experience. So I have to admit, I came into Wikimedia a total Africa partisan. I had spent much time working with communities in different African countries in my previous jobs, and I wanted to see out. If I'm being selfish, I just wanted to have the opportunity to be able to work with African communities again. But in reality, I'm kidding. What I really wanted was that the movement be better represented in Africa, and I wanted Africa to be better represented in the movement. And so I think my impression has been, and has been borne out, is that really one of the things that Wikimedia needed to do was to, as a community and as a culture, and specifically the Wikimedia Foundation, was to work directly with African Wikimedians to understand what movement building in the African communities looks like, and work with African Wikimedians who have been building movements for well before I joined the Wikimedia Foundation. And I think about the fact that Wikimedia Ghana has been around for quite some time, really, in terms of Wikimedians being active and present and engaged. What were the resources that they needed to continue to expand that work? We've seen this sort of explosion of growth in Wikimedia Nigeria, the incredible rate of acceleration of user groups across the continent. So my impression has just been, there's so much talent and so much enthusiasm and so much opportunity and so much future for Wikimedia in Africa and African Wikimedians in the movement as a whole. It's really about partnering with the broader movement. It's really about the Wikimedia Foundation having humility and understanding that Africans need to lead in this work. And it's about ensuring that Africans are represented in all of the work for the future. So I want to see, for example, no excuses. I want to see Africans on the board of the Wikimedia Foundation now. I want it. I want to see it. I think it is important. I want people to run for the next board elections, and I want to see Africans elected to the board of the Wikimedia Foundation. That's it.
Wow,
that's my next priority. Now.
That's really that's not impossible to happen, and
it's not impossible at all.
Yeah,
it will happen.
Let's say you have a special chance to actually say something nice. What would you like to say to African Wikimedians, having recognized all these traits that they possess that are relevant to the movement?
So one of the things that struck me when we started doing movement strategy was that we did some research. We're like, where are babies going to be born in the next 20 years? Because that's it's the only thing you can really predict, right? You can't really predict the future, but you can count babies. And the population, the predictions for today's predictions predict that 42% of the planet will be African by the end of this century. So what I would say to the African community is this is your moment.
Wow.
You are the future of this planet. You are the future of this community. You are the future of this movement. And I want to see that, like, let's lay the groundwork for that leadership. Let's ensure that you have the resources that you need. Let's be building movement leaders. And as I said, I want to see African Wikimedians on the board. I think it's incredibly important, and not just African Wikimedians. I know I'm probably going to have Wikimedians from Africa, listening today, but I also think it's Wikimedians from all of our emerging communities. It's time for your representation. It's really important. What's the song? It's time for Africa. Like, yeah, it's time.
If you had one message for Wikimedians around the world, what would it be?
What I'm referring to is, I for those who are watching, I wrote a goodbye, not goodbye, I mean, like, see you around the wikis sort of letter last week, and shared it. And I think that, there were sort of a few messages in that, which was that one is that I do think that the work that the Wikimedia community has done and continues to do is absolutely remarkable. And it is one of the proudest things that I've ever had the opportunity to be a part of. And I will always measure any future work that I do and communities that I'm involved with by how they compare to the Wikimedia communities, because this is just one of the most special places communities I've ever been in. Which is a call, I think, to this movement as well, to continue to really push to be the best version of the movement, to be, as I said a moment ago, as welcoming as possible to newcomers, to really see the expansion. Hey, Sislas, I'm glad you're back.
Thank
to
you.
see the
Sorry about it.
No worries. To see the expansion of the movement as something that makes us all stronger. To understand that we are, I think this, but stewards of something that is truly special in the world, and that we have a multi-generational obligation to protect it and to advance our work over the years to come, to remain really steadfast in the values. I think we have at times felt pulled in different directions as a movement. And one of the things that I believe is that, in the last 20 years, when I joined the foundation in 2014, there was a little bit of a sense sometimes that maybe Wikimedia wasn't as like interesting or exciting as other sort of sites on the internet, because it hadn't changed much. And today in 2021, I think the reason that Wikimedia is so beloved and respected is because it hasn't changed much, because it's still very core to those original values of independence and integrity and openness. And so as much as I ask you to, as a movement, to continue to evolve and welcome new people in and be welcoming, and to grow globally, and understand more broadly our conceptions of what knowledge is and can be, I would also say, don't go too far from those founding values, because they're so important. Our colleague Kim Gill at the Wikimedia Foundation always would say that we're a movement with a foundation, not a foundation with a community. And I think that is true to who we are. And I want to see this movement continue to lead and guide wherever the movement goes first or goes next.
In the second episode, we thought of the need to explain the role photography plays within the Wikimedia context. And this led to us bringing in some resource persons from Wikilove's Earth, Ghana, Wikipedia pages wanting photos, and of course the Nojada Initiative and the Commons Photographers User Group, precisely the Nigerian Commons Photographers User Group. The aim for bringing the Wikilove's Earth was to highlight on opportunities for photographers beyond, of course, the Wikilove's Africa photography context. There is also the Wikilove's Earth, where we make sure that materials of photography and media are being brought from some very awesome sites in various countries. Let's say a resort, a reserve or a game reserve precisely. And moving forward to the Wikipedia page wanting photos, we felt the need to show how these photographs and media files are being used within the Wikimedia context. That was why we brought the program coordinator in the person of Isaac Olatunde. And then moving to the Nojada Initiative, we aimed at highlighting the training to which in which photographers could participate. And the Nojada Initiative aims to make sure that the photography is highlighting experience, skills, and then it's a training ground for photographers. And then in bringing the person from the Nigerian Common Photographers Group, we hope to achieve, and which we did, to mention the house where photographers could actually meet each other, interact, communicate, and maintain synergy. Of course, there is the larger global Commons Photographers User Group.
Enjoy these highlights from that episode.
Now, let's move on to the kind of training actually that are available for photographers. Wiki doesn't just expect you to go about taking photographs. They also have a window for trainings for photographers. Ladies and gentlemen, make welcome Minette from Nojada.
Hello, Celestas.
Minette, you're welcome once again. Now, a lot of African Wikimedians probably don't know what the Nojada Initiative is about. How do you explain what Nojada is all about to them in your own personal words? Hello.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Yes, as I was saying, it's a project that was initiated by a Swiss organization called White Internet, and the objective of the training is to train professional and non-professional photographers in Cameroon on what is the free culture all about, how to how to take good pictures. So there was also a master class in photography in order to train the participant on how to take quality pictures and improve their skills in photography. And the third part of the project will be a photo exhibition that will take place that's in October. That's planned for October. So that's like a summary of what the No Jardin project is all about. So it's really about training the people who contribute to Commons on how to get the skill to do better contributions. So,
is there a chance you would duplicate the Nojada Initiative across the Wiki community if the opportunity provides itself?
Yes. I think we will be working on it as the Wikimedians of Cameroon user group. I think we had a very good the outcome of the project. I think it was a very good one. As for the Noja, then I don't know if there will be a second edition, since the Wikimedians of Cameroon user group was not actually the organization initiating the project. But I think having a training like a photo training or a masterclass in photography, along with photography project, is really like it's really a concept that I think it will be a good it will be a very good if we as the user group, or even from other user group from other African countries, could actually replicate, because when people sometimes when they see photo contests, they always think, oh no, I can't participate because I'm not a professional photographer, or I have just a mobile phone, or I don't know how to take good pictures. But if we can add up to the workshops that we are having to promote, we are usually organizing to promote the competitions like Wiki Loves Africa or Wiki Loves Earth. If we can add on to that, like a training where we invite professional photographers to come and train our participants, well, whether they have a professional camera or just their mobile phone, to actually improve their skill to be able to take better photographs, better images. I think we can really improve the quality as well as the quantity of the images you are able to contribute in the various competitions that are being organized within the Wikimedia Commons framework.
Okay. In general, can you give us an idea
What is the purpose of the photographers user group?
Thank you very much for this question. Let me start by saying I have been a member of the Commons Photographers User Group for the International User Group for a while. So I just, for example, the Commons Photographers User Group is it is an international user group that bring together volunteers and editors from Wikimedia Commons all together around the world to make a contribution to Wikimedia Commons. So I just have that particular idea in mind that maybe we can be able to create a particular user group that will bring together users from Nigeria in such a way that they can be able to make contribution to Nigeria related files into Wikimedia Commons. So the main purpose of the Nigerian Commons Photographers User Group is to engage new editors, that is volunteers across Nigeria. Because from what I know, is majority of the editors and volunteers that are currently in the Wikimedia project, they usually used to make contribution to Wikipedia and Wikidata. So part of the purpose of this user group is to engage new members, new volunteers, new photographers across Nigeria in such a way that they can be able to make contribution to Wikimedia Commons.
On the episode 3, we thought of the need to demystify the Wikimedia Foundation board elections. And for that reason, we featured the facilitation team represented by Mahuton, Zita, and Bashunda, where they explained the election processes to us with the aim of making sure that people aren't intimidated by the cumbersome process. And then we brought Florence Devoir and Maria Sefidari, who these two women have, of course, chaired the Wikimedia Foundation board at some point. And the aim was to get an insight into their lives, their experience, while they were on the board. This also was to encourage women who hope to run for the board, that it is possible for a woman to chair the board. And in the session, they also explained how they were able to juggle between their personal lives, family, other things, and the Wikimedia Foundation board. We move forward to, of course, bring the 3 election candidates from Africa in the persons of Reda Kebush, Eliane Dominique, and Ian Scott. We, of course, didn't want them to just be people known from a distance in terms of the African Wikimedians. And since they were from Africa, it was necessary to make sure they interfaced with the African community as much as possible. And the session was awesome. You can bet they expressed their interest, of course, and the reasons behind their motivation to run. And of course, they mentioned what the aim to achieve should they be elected on the board.
Enjoy these highlights from that episode.
You were the Wikimedia Foundation board chair from October 2006 to July of 2008. Could you please tell us what it was like taking the mantle from Jimmy Wales?
So what happened is, and that's again, I'm going back a little bit in history because the board has changed a lot over the past 17 years. It has, or 18 years, it has been operating. When I joined the board, there were only 3 people at that time, so we jumped to 5. And the 2 first people elected were both women. Again, I insist that women can be elected. At that time, the foundation was basically just a small envelope. It was only a collection of websites. It had a bank account, which was nearly empty. It owned a bunch of URLs, such as wikipedia.org, wikipedia.com as well, and few like these ones. And other than that, that was essentially it. And it owned the servers. We had 3 or 4 servers at that time. So it was, there was no staff, there was no budget, there was no office, there was absolutely nothing. So of course, this has changed quite a lot. What happened at that time is Jimmy Wales was the chairman by default. And I think in his mind, he probably thought he would be the chairman like forever. We didn't really discuss that much, but he was the chairman, and that was obvious. It was going to be for a very long time. And what happened is that during my tenure, during these 4 years, the key elements to keep in mind is that this was the time where we grew up the most, between 2004 to 2008. In 2004, very few people knew about Wikipedia. We didn't have many editors. We didn't have much visibility. We had some media articles from time to time, but not very frequently. And the growth, the main growth of Wikipedia was around 2006, 2007. And the problem is that as a foundation, we really struggled to keep up with this growth. It was very hard for us to follow all the requirement, all the needs that this very fast-growing environment was living. And Jimmy got very much requested, in particular, to talk to the press. So Jimmy was traveling all the time, going to conferences, speaking to the press. He loved that, and he did that very well. The problem is that in the meanwhile, the operation, the activities on the board were not happening anymore. It was not his cup of tea, to say it nicely, and he didn't have the time anymore. So there was a moment where the board had to set up and say, we need to find a solution. And we need to actually move away and, move this away from founder syndrome, whatever, and try to grow and now be aware that we need to expand the board and have a different process. And that's when they decided to appoint me chair. And at that time, our main worry, we had several things to deal with. There was the worry of Jimmy, which of course felt like maybe was stripped of something. But we reassured him that he would be there forever, like we love him. That's our Jimbo. And the second thing is that we feared as well the community reaction and the potential founder reaction and the press reaction, thinking what's going to happen if Jimmy is kicked away. So we had to deal with that, and it went fine. And everybody could see that we made it well. And the one thing we decided at that time, and which is still ongoing at the moment, is that we decided that the following chairs would always be community members. And I don't know, and maybe Maria will tell me if they decided to change their mind, but very visibly since then, the only chair people we had were always community members. So that was just a growing process, and we managed very well, I think.
I think with this said and this answer you're giving us, it would be nice to get a glimpse of Maria's thoughts or maybe the current realities of juggling the board chair affairs and other aspects of one's life. Maria, could you help us?
Of course. But first, let me say hi, Teslos. Hi, Florence. Thanks for having me here. I would say that the advantage I had when I became the board chair was that I had previously 2 years as vice chair. So in a sense, I had strong onboarding and visibility into what the role would entail, right? Especially with the second year being given more responsibilities, so that the ramp wasn't as high as, a normal board member becoming suddenly chair, right? And that helps a lot. I would say that there's 3 different moments during my tenure as a chair, right? Like the first year, it's quite a thing to become the person that suddenly people go for answers. And when they bring you problems, they're not your run-of-the-mill problems, like they are high-level problems, right? It's fortunately, you gotta have a lot of high-level organization skills. I think this is really, really important. And you have to be able to keep track of a million things. I think it's a requisite just for being a trustee. But if you're the chair who needs to have visibility into most things that are happening, even more so, right? With the second year, in which you are more used, in a sense, like you have a routine down, right? Like you get into the inertia of things. I think it was a very fun year in that sense, in that we tackled really important topics, right? And then there's the third year. That was I call it the unexpected year, last year, right? At the beginning of the year, and then when I talk about a year, I talk from one Wikimania to another Wikimania. I had already indicated I'm not going to continue as a board chair, okay? I will not run in the next elections. Let's prepare for a transition. It was part of the board priorities for the year, all right? And we get to February, and in the board meeting at February 2020, I also tell the board, I need a maternity leave. I'm going to have a baby. It's a great opportunity as well for Natalia to become the acting chair, have more responsibilities. Ezra became an acting vice chair. So you have trustees that are stepping up, that are going to get during this period in which nothing is going to happen until basically the Q4 meeting, the one that's about the annual plan. It's a good moment for people to start getting their hands dirty a little bit with more responsibility. What happens in March 2020? The entire scenario changes, right? Like there's a global pandemic. We have to close the office of the foundation extremely fast and start working from home. It's a very, very difficult moment. The foundation reaches out to the trustees whose terms about to expire and says, look, we don't think we can do community elections now. We don't think if we could even get community candidates that could, everyone is being so affected. People are getting sick. People are dying. People are losing their loved ones. We're thinking about, postponing for a year with the hope that then we might be in a better situation and we can get community participation and we can have, strong, good candidates and a good election process. So we have this situation in which everything is appended. I am taking calls, even though I'm in maternity leave. I still have really burned into my mind having my newborn baby crying while I'm still in a board meeting trying to move things forward and help, right? And this is the unexpected year. I didn't have a plan for this year, so we have to come up with, what are we going to work on this year? What are we going to do as our board priorities for the year? And of course, within this frame of movement strategy that we already have the movement recommendations. They came out in March of last year. So how can we keep moving forward without, halting everything in this context in which it's extremely difficult, right? And so I'm very proud of the board because we were able to keep the trains running in a sense. The staff was wonderful, of course. Personally, I reached the end of the year very, very tired. And I know everyone else as well, in the sense of everything went extremely online, right? Like the amount of free time you had, it just shrunk so much, right? We had community conversations happening every weekend. We need to move forward things like movement strategy, for instance. And it was hard, and we know without any in-person conferences, and this is a movement that has learned to depend on in-person conference in order to move forward topics and reach consensus and make decisions, having to figure out how do we move that online and have, for instance, global conversations. And then we started finding all the challenges, right? Like time difference challenges. How do we make sure that everyone can participate? The language challenges. In a sense, this has been positive because it has forced us to make sure everything has to be available in at least 10 languages, in at least the major languages. And let's see if we can get, people from requests from other languages, and we can make it happen. Childcare, as Florence mentioned before, the conversations about childcare, they were possible in some cases because that's another thing. This is a very international board. People are in different regions, and the spread of the sickness or the availability of vaccines varied a lot. In my case, there was no childcare available. You couldn't it was impossible during lockdown to get someone in your house, right? So I had to change how meetings happen. There was no possibility of having, 2 or 3 day meetings of 5 hours straight for 3 continuous days. If you have a baby or you have someone dependent on you, you just cannot do that. So we started experimenting with, for instance, let's have meetings in non-consecutive days. Let's have meetings that are like an hour and a half long or 2 hours long. Trying to adapt to the situation in ways that would reduce the burden on everyone at a time where, everyone was trying desperately to do their best. It's been a really, really hard year to navigate. Of course, I know everyone understands that, and in their own context has been through that, right? I'm hoping that we're going to get through it all together in the movement as best as possible. As I said, I'm really proud of how the board has handled it. We've been moving forward with movement strategy. We've been moving forward with all the governance reform that came from the governance review that we did in my first year as chair. So in that sense, I'm happy, but I will admit I think we all felt the burnout as well.
How is devoting a huge amount of time to the movement for free, in quotes, going to benefit, let's say myself in the end, if I decide to maybe run and maybe get elected? How is it going to benefit me? Not financially, but what do I get out of it? I mean, what benefits can one derive from being on the Wikimedia Foundation board?
And one of the things I did when I was chairwoman was to actually establish what we have now and change over time, of course, but what was the first vision and mission and values of our movement, so as to make sure that board members are aligned with that, and mostly the brand new staff members we hire are also understanding what is important to us and what is negotiable and what is not negotiable. And what do you mostly derive from being board member? Well, you have your hand in this. You can actually lead that in a certain direction. And that's such a satisfaction. All of us can do it as a regular member, but when you're a board member, you can do way more. And that's the big thing. That's the reason why you stick there, even though you're super tired, as Maria was saying with the baby boy. And the baby boy, when you see some blackness around me, it's that the baby boy is a big boy now. And he's a 15-year-old guy, and he's moving around. He's very unhappy because he wants to play with it. But yeah, that's the big thing. The power. Simply the power to move in the right direction.
I heard it was a very close call, and it takes courage to announce your candidacy once again for the upcoming board elections. What is your motivation?
First of all, it takes a lot of courage and hesitation until the last minute. This election, for me, is like the last election. I'm supported by a great number of communities and people, and it is their confidence in me that motivated me for the second time to be here in the board. For me, it's really important to understand that a lot of people or a lot of communities support me to get into the board, because the age of such a large global community requires a responsible person who will put in place mechanisms or will assist or help person who will put these mechanisms on the movement. So this is one of my motivations at this time.
One could say you took your sweet time before announcing your candidacy. Why is that? And what motivated you to put your name forward?
Thank you. The reason why I took a long time to think about to put my name forward for this position is because this is a very big responsibility to take on, being a board member. It also requires that, so I did have a lot of people encouraging me, a lot of groups encouraging me, much like Rita. but the reason why I hesitated is because, like I said, a lot of encouragement, a lot of responsibility, but also it requires a lot of sacrifice. Florence already sort of mentioned that earlier, as did Maria, that it does require you to give up a lot of your volunteer sort of activities. So, you got to leave the board that you got to leave your chapter positions. You can't engage as easily with members of the foundation for very good reasons related to conflict of interest. And that has an impact on your volunteer activities and all the projects, sort of certainly all the projects I'm involved in, especially trying to promote things like a stronger presence for African editors in the Wikipedia community, copyright advocacy, which is something I'm also very passionate about. That's one of the reasons why I was sort of hesitant. In terms of why I'm running and why I feel so passionate about it, there's essentially three reasons, but they all relate to community. So when people ask me, what is Wikipedia? What is the Wikimedia movement? What is the free knowledge movement that we're a part of? For me, it's the community. Things like Wikipedia is sort of the result. Things like the Wikimedia platform, the technology is just the platform that we sort of make that happen. But it's really sort of the strength of the volunteer public benefit spirit of our community and strengthening that.
Okay, thank you so much. The first question we have for you is you are putting up your name as a candidate for the first time. What motivated you to put up your name?
D'accord. Donc, pour moi, c'est important d'intégrer, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, le conseil d'administration. Moi, je ne viens pas dans un esprit de peut-être emmener à changer ce qui existe déjà, c'est-à-dire à changer ce qui est déjà fait par d'autres communautés, par je veux dire, les autres membres du conseil qui ont travaillé précédemment. Mais l'idée, c'est d'apporter de l'aide, d'apporter une plus-value, pourquoi pas, et dans la communauté, puisque la communauté est diversifiée et on a plusieurs compétences. Chaque personne, selon son domaine de compétences, peut apporter son aide. Donc, pour moi, aujourd'hui, en intégrant le conseil d'administration, ce que moi je souhaiterais, c'est que on puisse emmener la communauté en général à travailler plus à l'intégration des personnes, par exemple, qui ne comprennent pas la langue anglaise. Je veux dire, je prends l'exemple sur ce cas-là parce que on est arrivé, enfin, suite à mes différentes participations aux différentes activités du mouvement, je suis ressortie avec un certain nombre de questionnements parce que je me disais que j'ai des idées à partager, j'ai des choses à dire aux autres par rapport au débat qui est en cours, parce que je peux comprendre tout le contexte de ce qu'on est en train de faire, mais peut-être intervenir en anglais, ce serait un peu difficile, par exemple, donc ça m'empêcherait de partager mes idées. Mais si on avait la possibilité, par exemple, de permettre aux personnes qui s'expriment dans les autres langues de pouvoir avoir une lucarne, je ne sais pas pourquoi pas, trouver la formation à faire en anglais pour pouvoir les intégrer davantage, ou alors lors des réunions trouver les méthodes pour les interprétations pour pouvoir leur permettre de s'exprimer davantage, ce serait bien. Donc pour moi en fait, c'était le fait qu'on ait inclus l'option capacity building dans la stratégie 2030, c'était vraiment la bienvenue, parce que pour moi il fallait travailler sur cet aspect-là spécifiquement pour pouvoir permettre à toutes les communautés d'être intégrées et d'apporter leurs idées dans le développement de la communauté. Parce que si on ne le fait pas ainsi, on risque d'exclure un certain nombre de personnes qui certainement pourraient envoyer leurs idées pour l'évolution de la communauté. Donc pour moi, en intégrant le conseil d'administration, c'est de permettre à ce que c'est de proposer des idées pour que ces communautés-là puissent être davantage intégrées à travers le brisement des barrières linguistiques. Donc ça, c'est de un. Et deuxièmement, essayer d'apporter également mon expérience en matière de communication à la communauté. C'est vrai, la communauté communique, mais je pense qu'on pourrait améliorer la manière de communiquer de la communauté, communiquer selon les communautés et envoyer les informations selon les langues de compréhension de chaque communauté. Je pense que je peux aider à ce niveau-là à apporter mes idées au conseil, des idées qui pourraient servir aussi pour toute la communauté, en fait. En quelques mots.
Okay, merci. So Eliane was trying to tell us that first she would like to foster community integration at all levels because currently she feels there is maybe some things that are being lost in translation due to maybe some language barriers and all, and that is totally relatable. So she's trying to build a community that would enhance, or she's trying to make better the community that actually makes use of Swift, use of various languages, so that whatever that is being communicated will be generally interpreted and understood. And then she hopes to foster a better capacity building for the Wikimedia communities across Africa, and of course the Wikimedians across the world in entirety. So those are the two focuses that she's hoping that she could bring to light if elected on the board. Donc, merci. And on the fourth episode of the WikiAfrica Hour, which held on 30th of July 2021, we featured the two great wiki events, the Wikimania 2021 and Wiki Indaba, where the co-organizing teams were brought to give us a background peep into their activities in terms of how these events are organized and how these events can benefit you and your work as a Wikimedian. They did justice to that.
Enjoy these highlights from that episode.
I couldn't agree less when you said that there was need to amplify the voice of Africa, in quote, on the global stage in terms of the global discussion. What advice can you give any team or community by looking to organize some sort of pre-conference, be it for Wikimania or Wiki Indaba or some other wiki thing in the future?
So coming to your question, like which kind of advice do I have to the community that might want to organize again, maybe pre-conference or similar kind of projects? The one is that communication. They should maintain communication within the participants or the communities that they need to involve. That will be easier if the communities involved, they do understand better what is the purpose of that kind of pre-conference or similar event. The second thing is commitment. If you see these things happening, there is some way someone gonna be needing to be very committed with looking out that ensuring that everything is going smoothly. So yeah, I think this is very important. The third thing is the mindset of that we are ready for this. This helps us to, or anyone who wants to organize this events, to keep moving, because overcoming the fear or the spirit of saying we are not ready, no. Feeling that we are ready for this helps to keep moving. Then the good team actually, will be a good option and a good thing to have. Having a good team of people who are active, because sometimes some activities they need someone to be available even the hours that are not convenient to others. And the last two things is that they should keep synchronization with the WMF team that is responsible for the particular grant, because some of the advice can be helpful while they are moving along the plan. And the last thing is the COVID-19 issue, because the global pandemic has been a challenge to most of the countries. So before they decide whatever pre-conference or in-person gathering, they should be considering about COVID-19 issues, whether they are situation allows them
forward. I mean, Wikimania is stewarded by the steering committee, to my understanding. What is the role of the steering committee? And I mean, can anyone join? And how is the location for these Wikimania conferences chosen?
So the steering committee personally, I think, has a very major role of assuring that Wikimania takes place. So I think the main task of the steering committee is to make sure that every year we again organize Wikimania. Of course, there's the selection process, but it's really moving forward, guarantee that this event continue because it is important for the community. The second aspect is to advocate for the role of the community. So, of course, there's many partners, there are many people involved in Wikimania, sorry, my Italian pronunciation of it.
That's all right.
There are many people involved. And of course, there is a continuous exchange with the Wikimedia Foundation that in the recent years has gained a major role also in facilitating the event and in supporting it. On the other hand, what is important about this event is really the initiative of the community, the space that we can make for all the proposal and all the engagement of the community. So guaranteeing that the community is at the center of Wikimania is part of our duty. And the last aspect is also making sure that the experience of the past nourish Wikimania in the future, so that we take advantage of those experiences that we learn one edition from the other. So this is, in general terms, the role of the Wikimania Steering Committee. The members of the committee, so you were asking, so the people that compose the committee are normally people that organized previous Wikimania, or they had a major role in previous Wikimedia. So we normally co-opt them, or there are people that propose themselves to join. They can be also people very active in events. In general, we had proposal also throughout time of people that wanted to join in, and they can bring experience, they can provide obviously experience of the community and other events, and so they've been invited to join and nominated, but in general is based on previous edition. So the steering committee is really a role of legacy, a role of continuity related to the previous events. And lastly, how we select the venues. This year, of course, we went virtual for COVID. We also believe that it's important to not put the community at risk. So this is also a reason why an online event was the best solution. But in general, there is the first criteria is an unsaid criteria is to have a Wikimania around the world. This has been a main topic for many years. Wikimania has been turning around. We had edition in Europe, in Latin America, in Africa, in the United States, in Asia. And right now, we would love to have an event in Asia. So it's going to be, let's say, the next venue. Latin America also will be another turn. So we're waiting to go there. I think this international movement is important, is of course not the only criteria. Every edition we look at when we used to have a bidding process, so we used to have a competition, let's say, to host Wikimania. I was personally a lot against this competition because one of the problems that we faced throughout time is that you have a winner and you have the others are they lose, and sometimes they put a lot of effort in proposing their city, their venue. So trying to find solutions that may allow teams to work together, like the idea of working with a network of Asian country. I think this is a better option. But of course, we also believe that Wikimania should be a space in which communities can apply and can propose their ideas. So I would like to invite you during this edition of Wikimania. Traditionally, we have a session focused on the future of Wikimania. So please join us there to discuss how we want Wikimania to change, how we want it to be in the future. And if you have a proposal, please come and discuss it with the team to make sure that we make this event as more inclusive as possible, and we allow also people to propose their own ideas. Personally, I think an event should change a little bit the world. I think events are not only an occasion to gather people, but they can be a chance to transform things, to be an engine of change, a way of triggering changement in a location. And I personally think that Wikimania can have this power. So when we take a Wikimania in a city, it can give visibility to our topic of free knowledge. And I really hope also the proposal take into account this, and they take into account how fun and experimental and new our event can be. Thank you.
Hello, Yamen. We're coming over to you. You're on the program team. I mean, you are responsible for choosing through the litany of submissions. I mean, that sounds like a Herculean task to do. What does the process involve?
So first of all, it's a responsibility to be part of this committee of programming with my colleagues, with Anna, Ludovic, and all the other volunteers. I would like to say thanks to all the volunteers who helped us to select the session to be part of the program. And it was not an easy task, because we received many submissions. We received more than 200 submissions, and many of them are very interesting. And we had to select some, because we have some limitation at the time, so it was not an easy task to select the accepted sessions. But we tried to select the maximum. So we selected more than 170 sessions to be part of the program, whether live or pre-recorded or on demand. So also we tried, when selecting the session, to have diversified content, diversified topics, diversity in terms of gender of the presenters, and also to respect the time zone of the presenter, to have to allocate the session to the different time zone to make this Wikimania accessible for all the Wikimedians around the world. As Winnie said, we wanted to make this Wikimania a special one, the most accessible and the most inclusive one.
When is the Wiki Indaba happening? When precisely? Because they have been, how do I say, some discussions about the possible dates. So when, according to you, and who is the team that is hosting this time?
To answer your question, it's going to be a virtual event, and it's a 3-day conference in November between the 5th and the 7th. So as Geoffrey said, this is the place to be if you are interested in how the Wikimedia movement is like in Africa, in connecting with affiliates, if you're interested in connecting with so many people that we have had the opportunity to reach out to and work with during the pandemic, but also if you're in the diaspora.
What is special about this year? What can we expect from the conference, from the program itself?
We all know for a fact that the work of the movement, and especially in Africa, was affected by the situation that was presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. But this situation also presented the opportunity for so many affiliates to train people that were beyond their geographical location. So there were so many editors that were recruited, and with the length of time and the kind of things that they've done, they've evolved from just being editors to now, being able to take on administrative roles. But the challenge with that is beyond the trainings and beyond the opportunities that we offered as a collective, people have been working in isolation. So one of the main things that Wiki Indaba 2021 is going to be looking at and placing a lot of emphasis on is just the inclusion. We need to establish a sustainable dialogue with everybody that we've worked with in the last year.
In the light of the Wikimedian scholarships, what will the Wiki Indaba 2021 scholarship look like on a continent where there are, of course, not so many official user groups? How are you going to encourage those who want to be part of the community but are not yet organized to be so?
Yeah, this is where the inclusion comes in. So, like I said, we've worked with individuals and people and some organized groups in countries that actually have no, how can I say, established affiliates. But then the numbers of the people that we've worked there are able to come and be a collective to be reckoned with. So the Wiki Indaba Scholarship one will be to primarily enable digital access to the proceedings. But in addition to enabling digital access, it will be able to allow those who have gotten the scholarship to be able to meet and interact with like-minded people in the community, because the biggest challenge with that is we could say, okay, there's free registration and everybody will register for free, but then having the access to the places or the things where they can meet people that have more impact than their training could actually afford. So that is what the scholarship for Wiki Indaba 2021 will primarily enable.
Now I've given you the insights on why the Wiki in Africa, precisely the persons of Isla and Florence, thought of the need to activate this initiative of WikiAfrica Hour, a broadcast that is aimed towards a better integration into the Wiki-wide movement of the African Wikimedians communities. How can you be part of this awesome WikiAfrica Hour initiative? First, you can support by suggesting topics, interesting projects, guests you feel we should feature on the WikiAfrica Hour episodes. If there are individuals maybe you can't reach, but you know that having them on the platform would be beneficial to the movement, please just go to the WikiAfrica Hour meta page under the suggestion platform and put their names there, and we would do the work to get them on the platform. If you have some current updates, news you think we should feature to keep everybody abreast of communication, please go to our newsroom section on the WikiAfrica Hour meta page and put it up there. And then you can also support by subscribing to the Wiki in Africa YouTube channel so that you can keep tabs on all topics that are discussed. Thank you for participating in our Wikimedia session. I look forward to seeing suggestions of topics, projects, and guests up to December 2022 even. Yes, we would like to have it that way up. And of course, we look forward to seeing you on the Wiki Hour episodes in the future. Thank you so much once again. I remain Ceslos Obonaya, your host.
This episode of WikiAfrica Hour was hosted by Ceslas Obonaya. Let us know what topics you want to discuss and join us next month on the same channels. Subscribe to the Wiki in Africa YouTube channel.